It is Thursday night, and as always, we're joined on Off the Ball by John Giles. Good evening, John.
Evening, Nathan.
So, this time last week, we were probably all a little bit high after going so close to beating Portugal in the World Cup qualifier. Since then, there has been a 1-1 draw with Azerbaijan, a hugely disappointing result, but probably a game Ireland should have won. And a 1-1 draw against Serbia, where there was a big grandstand finale, but probably a game Ireland should have been beaten in. What do you take from the last week?
Well, certainly the last match we played was probably the best you could look back on as a result. I'd say the Portuguese match, there was more to look forward to from and from the game itself. I think we certainly played better than Portugal than we did in the next two matches.
So how did Ireland go from playing so well last Wednesday night against Portugal and coming so close to gaining a massive result against such a quality side to not being able to break down an Azerbaijan team 4 days later?
That's the $64 million question.
That's why we pay you the big bucks, John.
Well, first of all, it's very difficult to know. But a couple of things that I can say that in the Portuguese match, I thought our two best players were Coleman and Doherty. And then when it came to the next match against Azerbaijan, neither of the two players played in the same positions. Coleman went to middle of back in the back three, and Doherty went on the right hand side. And I think also in the second match there was the forward line was changed in a big way, where I didn't think there was any balance to it. With Ida,
Connolly and Parrott.
You know, like where Parrott, I know where Ida was playing because he's a big centre forward. He plays up front, but when you try to fit two other attackers in, without, I think two is ideal and one wide, Nathan. But when you get three, there is no position really for two players either side of Ida.
You think
balance.
one player should be able to do the job?
No, it's a no position if I'm saying it in the right way.
Yeah.
Because you need two up front, that's fine. The other's one playing off Ida. But when you have three up there, I mean, there's nowhere for them to go. And therefore you've nobody wide when you've got three up there like that. So that was a big change from the first match. Now, I can understand Stephen because he wants to see all the players. But I think it has to be a balance to what you're doing. And certainly, like when I found as manager, you go from one match to the next. And against Portugal, again, I'll repeat myself, like Coleman and they're really good. So, and the goalkeeper, of course, was excellent from the start. And as a manager, in my opinion, you look at the positives. You say, right, they're good. That's good. That's good. We'll keep with that. But we didn't. Coleman went to the back. I know there was an injury, but I think if the players play well, say, right, I stick with him. He's a good player. And there were big changes for the second match, Nathan.
The performance of Coleman and Doherty against Portugal was such a positive, and it gave Ireland, they were almost able to control the game as much as Ireland had any control in the game. It seemed to come from when it came to Doherty and Coleman, in that they held on to the ball when they needed to. They were able to play balls down the line and release the forwards, and we probably saw the first time the two of them have really played well at the same night for Ireland. Is that something then as a manager you go, okay, yes, Darragh O'Shea is injured, I bring in Bamidele because then I only have to make one change, or actually replacing Bamidele, they end up having to make two or three changes? Well,
what he did was that he removed Coleman from the position he played well in, and Doherty in the position. So you leave them and you put somebody else, as you say, in the back three, because you stick with what's good. The goalkeeper was great. The two fullbacks were great. Got that. Now we go from there. That's what those matches are for. Who can we put in there that's going to make it, that suits the team? And instead, those two lads didn't play. And then we had the three up front where there was no balance to. So that was a big change as well. Now, I know all managers, and as Stephen was saying, have to make changes. But you don't have to, if you get a positive, in my opinion, you stay with the positive. And then you look for more positives in the team as you go along.
With the players that Ireland have right now and the players that started against Azerbaijan, should they be good enough to beat Azerbaijan?
Definitely, Nate. We have to have players in the squad that we have to beat Azerbaijan. Definitely. I mean, if you look at the two teams playing over a period of time, how many of the Azerbaijan team would get in the Irish team or in the squad? Maybe one or two. I'm not sure. But I mean, you only have to look at the records. I mean, Azerbaijan's record is very poor because that's the type of team they are. So I know Stephen is in the early stages, well, fairly early stages, and you wouldn't expect us to beat Portugal with the players that they have, but we would be expected to beat Luxembourg and Azerbaijan in these particular matches, Nathan, definitely.
And I know it's hard to tell from the outside, but the fact that Ireland didn't then, and you talk about those tactical changes, is it down to those changes? Did you see a lack of confidence? Because, you know, it's one win in 16 games now. These are young players who've dreamed all their life of playing for Ireland. They didn't imagine it would be like this. Do you look at that team and see they just need a bit of a lift? They need a spark from somewhere and they're not getting it at the moment?
Well, as manager, you're always looking for that, Nathan. But you have to look, like every game, you see something new in it. You know, either good or bad. That's how you progress. You know, you see a team, well, we're okay in that position. Let's have a look at this position till you get to the stage where you know for sure this is my best team. And you can only go on what squad you have, Nathan.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I know Stephen said he was going to play for three at the back and from the start. But I always felt that you have to see what group of players have I got, what positions have I got, before you make up your mind actually what formation you're going to have.
Is three at the back the best formation for the talent that Ireland have?
Well, I don't like three at the back on a personal level. I don't think there's any need for it because I mean when you're managing a team, you've got 10 players, outfield players. You got to make the best use of those players, Nathan, right? And my take on it, as far as the wing backs are concerned, if you play with four at the back, that's one man saved, right? If you can do the job. And I think that if the full backs, for the right back, for example, goes on the attack at the right time, you don't need a designated full back to do that. In other words, he's a defender when the ball's on the other side of the field, and then when you get on the attack and one of our players gets it, you go either left side or right side. That's the way it's been in football. I mean, people talk about old-fashioned stuff. I mean, I played at a time, say, at Leeds, for example, we had Paul Rainey or Paul Madeley at right back, and Peter Lorimer got the ball. They were on the overlap, and Terry Cooper on the other side would be on the cover, right? So when it came from on the other side, then Terry Cooper would be the attacking fullback. So you don't need, in my opinion, a designated player to do that. It's a waste of a player.
In midfield in Ireland, and I know we touched on this last week, but very little of what Ireland did, even when they did build possession or kept possession, came through the midfield. And there was a feeling that with the Stephen Kenny era that Ireland would start to see a lot more of the ball and dominate possession. That hasn't happened so far. Does another player in midfield make that easier? Do Ireland have the talent in midfield to play a possession-based game? What's your sense of where Ireland are with the likes of Cullen and Hendrick, Malumbi, McGrath?
Well, I don't want to be harsh on them, but they're much of a muchness, Nathan, to be honest. Like any two or three you pick. And I mean, for what it's worth, I tell you what I would do. I would play two in the midfield, right? And I'd play McLean on the left side and Horgan on the right side as wide players in that position, right? A bit like going back to the Notts Forest time when they were winning the Champions League, where you had John Robertson and Martin O'Neill on the right. And if you look at the midfield players that they were ordinary players, but they had one job to do: get the ball, give it to these two players, and let them get on with it. Because if you're not going to have creative players, Nate, you're not going to have creative players.
Yeah.
And that's what we got. So if you get the two lads in the middle of the field that make it easy for them. In other words, when they get it, give it out wide. And the wingers at that time can also defend. That's my take on it, and I know it's difficult to imagine, or maybe difficult what I'm saying. But if you don't have the creative midfield players, you don't have them. So make their job easy for them. If they're not going to create, then you just have to try something else.
Yeah.
Give it to McLean.
The argument against that, I guess, is that you would often talk about John Robertson and the influence that John Robertson could have in a game from that position on the wing. That for all that they can do, like Darrell Horgan is not John Robertson.
No, well, he doesn't have to be. But he's the best we have. That's what I think, to do what's needed to be done. I mean, we can play three midfield players, Nathan, and if they're not doing it. They're not going to create. So if you make the job easy for them, like Clough did with the two players, McGovern was one. I can't think of the other lad's name that played in the middle. No, McGovern came to Leeds, very, very average player, really, to be honest, really average. But he wasn't asked to do much. Get it, give it out to O'Neill, give it to Robertson. Now, Robertson was a genius because he could actually, the only player I ever seen could control the game as a winger from that position. He was brilliant at it, always in a position to receive the ball. So anybody that played midfield, give it out to him. It was easy, and I think we could do that. I would try it if I was manager anyway. I'd have Horgan on the right, I'd have McLean out wide on the right, and don't forget, when the ball's on the other side of the field, they can drop inside and become a midfield player. Nathan, you know what I mean?
Move ahead then to Tuesday night in the game against Serbia. But there was enormous pressure on Ireland ahead of that game. There were a lot of questions about Stephen Kenny's future. Did Ireland answer any of those questions on Tuesday night? It did feel as though it was a 1-1 draw, that even Stephen Kenny admitted himself Serbia probably deserved to win that game. Was there anything you could take from that performance in terms of improvement?
Well, the main thing you take it from it is that the Bazunu, is that the way we present it?
Yeah, Bazunu,
actually shows that he's a really, really outstanding player. Really outstanding player. And you'll have to name the other lad for me that came on at the pitch. Omabamadele.
It's a tough one.
Is another one, young fella, that looks a really, really good player. You could take from that. I mean, if it hadn't been for the goalkeeper, Nathan, we could have been beaten 3-0 or 3-1. There's no doubt about that. But what was good from the team in the situation that we're in, they haven't stopped trying. And what happens, in my experience in football, when the players lose confidence in the manager, they stop having a go.
Have you ever seen that at international level for Ireland? Have you ever seen an Irish team that lost belief in the manager?
I played in the team that lost. Now I'm going back to the bad old days, where the selection committee picked the team.
Right.
And that was a joke. Now, that was a real, real disaster. You had 5 fellas who had met with some of them, someone just put a few quid into a club, and the next year they're picking the team. This was ridiculous. And we had no confidence and no belief in any manager that played at that time. Now and again at Daily Mount, we'd get into it. But overall, the morale was awful.
Can you talk about that, what that actually means, the difference between playing for a manager and not playing for a manager? Is that, I think, those conversations in a dressing room, are people whispering over on the side? How does that actually come about, that as a group, somehow the players stop going out there wearing a green jersey and I don't know, wanting to do their best?
Well, I can go back to the old days, Nathan, where we had a manager most of the time that didn't pick the team and that. And the atmosphere in the dressing room before the match was awful. We were never going to win. I remember playing Spain in a match over there in Seville, I think it was, and we had no confidence in ourselves and no goal, and we went one in front.
Right.
Oh, sorry, but no, not one in front. Okay, we got a free kick. And one of the lads hit it and scored. Right? Now, what happened? Instead of running back to the centre circle, we couldn't believe it. No, this is true. This is talking about atmosphere in the club. And the Spanish players picked up on it, ran to the referee, and the referee thought there's something odd here, and disallowed the goal. Because we thought we were not allowed to score. That was the morale at that time.
Right.
And funny enough, 10 minutes later, we did score. So we should have been 2 up. We got a hiding 4-1.
Yeah.
Now that was in the really bad old days. You know.
And who was in the? I know you've spoken before about the selection committee. So in the dressing room beforehand, who's coaching the team?
Well, we did have a manager. Actually, Jackie Carey was there for a while with the great Jackie Carey, who was one of the best players ever. One of a hero of mine, and everybody else in Ireland that played football. He was a Manchester United captain when they won the cup in 1940. He was one of the great players, but he didn't have control of the situation.
Right.
He didn't pick the team. You know, so like even the lads who were playing in the team wouldn't have the respect that was needed from the manager, because they knew in the next match the team could change completely, and the manager had no control over it. So he had no confidence in it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now things have changed a lot since where the managers do pick the teams now, as we know, and I think as far as the players are concerned now, and for a long time, they know the manager's in charge. Whether it be Mick McCarthy or anybody, they know the manager picks the team, and that's it. And what I've seen with the team now, and in most of the Irish teams that I've seen over the last years, I've never seen the team not have a go. Nathan.
Right.
And with Stephen, the lads went out there, and all the matches that we played, 3 matches last week, they did have a go. And in most of the matches, we didn't play well enough to do what's needed to be done. And that goes back to Stephen, because, as I say, the match in Portugal, then 2 of our best players didn't play in the position in the next match. And Stephen is talking about the future.
Yeah. Can you talk about that? Because that press conference pre-match earlier in the week where Stephen Kenny spoke about building towards 2024 and how nobody really expected Ireland to be favourites to qualify from this group, or maybe even to qualify at all, that they're building towards 2024. Is that fair enough when you look at the transition that Ireland are going through and the amount of young players he's bringing through?
No, I wouldn't agree with it, Nathan. You know, what you find in football, the next match is the most important match. 3 years ahead, or 4 years ahead, well, in Stephen's case, 2 years ahead. That's a lifetime in football. And you're talking about bringing young lads through. But there's a certain thing in it which is not good. If you say we're planning for 3 years' time, well, what's Duffy going to think? And Coleman going to think? And these players who mightn't be there in 3 years' time. And as far as the young players are concerned, I've seen loads of promising players, Nathan, that in 3 years' time don't make it.
Yeah.
So you have to go from one match. And of course, you can put a couple of young lads in, but I don't think you can really plan on 3 years. Football is not like that. Football is the next game. How do we do the next game? And you learn from it and try and win matches in between now and 3 years' time. Because nobody knows what's going to happen. I've seen it. Promising players come on. Now, 3 years' time, they're nowhere.
And it's out of his hands, I guess, as well, when you talk about the likes of Bazunu, who's at Manchester City on loan at the moment. Like, there's no guarantees as to what happens with his future. Likewise with Omid Bamidele, Ida, at club level, that's out of Stephen Kenny's hands as to how they develop as players.
But the one thing, though, Nathan, about the goalkeeper, he's doing it now. Do you know what I mean? And what you'd put your money on him being a great goalkeeper. Well, I would anyway.
Right.
I think this kid is great. His temperament is great. Like, you can't say that about any of the other young players. Far from it. They have a lot to do. They have a lot to improve. Are they going to be playing in the club teams? Are they going to develop? So I don't think it's reasonable or right to be talking about 3 years' time in any team.
Just before we talk about Stephen Kenny's future, just go back to Gavin Bazunu, because I'm sure, you as a former Shamrock Rovers man, him as a former Shamrock Rovers man, they'd love to hear your opinion on him and how highly you do rate him then. What is it about him as a goalkeeper that you've seen so far that you've been so impressed with? The
goalkeeper?
Yeah.
Oh, whatever good you're looking for in a keeper, I've seen it so far. His temperament, first of all, his ability to do what needs to be done, crosses, saves. I mean, he was brilliant in the match the other night against Serbia. Brilliant. I mean, we could have lost him. We could have been 4 down before we scored, Nathan. And it looks like starting. I've heard him a couple of times on the television after. Definitely humble lad. Doesn't not get carried away with it. The maturity at his age, his physique, they're all things you're looking for, particularly the temperament. And it's been brilliant for a young fella. I had nothing but a great future for him. put my life on him.
Wow. Yeah, it certainly is exciting to see what Gavin Bazunu does over the next few years. So, Stephen Kenny's future then, with one win in 16 games, and newspaper reports earlier in the week that maybe if things hadn't gone right against Serbia, that maybe a decision may have been taken then. Jonathan Hill, the CEO of the FAI, was talking today. There was a big announcement around a Sky sponsorship for the women's national team. So understandably, as you would expect, when Jonathan Hill went in front of the media and our very own Stephen Doyle, he was going to be asked about Stephen Kenny's future. Here's what he had to say.
Jonathan, just to ask you, for Stephen Kenny was asked last week about his position as the Ireland manager. There was talk of him being under pressure, possibly could lose his job if the results in the last international window didn't go well. Now, he did say during that he was planning for the European Championship campaign 2024. Can you give any clarity as to where the FAI stand, how long his contract is? Have you looked beyond this current World Cup campaign?
Look, it's very simple and very clear. Stephen has a contract until the end of July 2022. In relation to the current campaign, we as a board review any international window at the end of that window. So on a monthly basis, we'll be looking at the overall World Cup qualification campaign in November. And as a board, we'll discuss all of the areas and all of the issues. We'll be thinking about it in terms of our own strategy and our own medium-term strategy, etc., etc. But we'll have that conversation at that point.
Would you agree that some of the reports last week, or with the reports last week, that said that he's under pressure if he doesn't get results, if he doesn't get winning results?
Well, look, I think Stephen knows, and we talked about this earlier in our announcement of the Sky supporting the Irish women's national team, that we have an expectation before every game that we're going to be competitive and win those games. But football is football, and we've had a range of performances, we've had a range of results, and we will review those, as I say, as we move forward.
But does he need to win matches to keep his job beyond this current campaign?
But as I say, I'm not going to have that type of conversation until we get to the end of the campaign itself.
So, Jonathan Hill there, the FAI CEO, really refusing to be drawn in some ways, but certainly not giving a ringing endorsement of Stephen Kenny, and not mentioning anything about a grand plan for 2024. Where do you think right now then the FAI should be with Stephen Kenny? Is it leave it till the end of this campaign and make a decision, or with the players who are coming through, does he deserve to be kept on until 2024 and to come out and get ahead of this story?
Well, first of all, I think the statement that Jonathan Hill made there was correct. I think there's 4 more matches to go in it, Nathan. So, I mean, if I was in the position, I'd say Stephen to continue for the next 4 matches, and then look at the situation from there, the overall situation, which is all you can do. I mean, if you took a decision now to say, right, we're not keeping him, you could win the next 4 matches. If you said we are keeping him, you might lose the next 4 matches. So I think it's the sensible thing to do is let the next 4 matches run, and hopefully the team improves, and you could say, well, okay, we see where Stephen is coming from, and we can look to the future. That's the only time you can make the decision, Nathan. I mean, if we lose the next 4 matches or don't do well in the next 4 matches, then you'd have to say, well, Stephen's had 20 matches and it hasn't really worked out. You'd have to say that. But I think it's realistic to say, well, there's no point in making the decision now because there's 4 matches to go in this particular tournament. It's most unlikely that we'll qualify anyway, Nathan. But you could get 4 matches where you say, this team is really coming on. Or you could get 4 matches where we're no good. And I think the decision is made, to be quite honest, in the next 4 matches. And
that decision, how much of that is results-based? The 4 games are Luxembourg, Azerbaijan, Portugal, and a friendly against Qatar. That decision to continue till 2024, do you think that's solely based on those 4 results, or is it based on the performance within those games? I'd say it's mostly based, if I was doing it, on the performances. Because what you find, if the performance is good, usually the result is good. It's no good saying, well, the performance is good and we were beaten. You'd have to see, well, this team is coming on. The great thing about football, it's out on the pitch, Nathan, and everybody can see it. You can't kid anybody. It's one great thing about sports. Out on the pitch, we can see it. Is the team improving?
Are they getting better?
Is it?
Are the young lads coming on?
Is it, Johns? We're a year into this, 16 games. Have you seen signs that this team is progressing, is coming together?
I must honestly say no. I haven't. I think because when we're playing the likes of Azerbaijan and Luxembourg, you know, you're playing Portugal away. Actually, one of our best performances was Portugal away, which are regarded as one of the top teams. Right? That's
Is that
fine.
progress?
We didn't win it, but you have to be beaten. You have to be winning matches. Right? You have to be, especially against Azerbaijan and Luxembourg and teams around that. You know, like the players we can produce for our international team. Like, we have to do better than that.
Yeah. No doubt we will come back to this again over the coming weeks and months, John.
I hope we do now. I met Stephen. I think he's a very nice fella. He's a good lad, really good lad. He loves the job, and I'd love him to be doing well. But we have to look at the whole situation and take any personal feelings out of it. And that's what I'm trying to do with you, Nathan. I'd love to be saying, "Oh, it's great. Everything is good. Stephen's doing a great job," and I'd love to be able to. But that's not the case at the moment. You know, we're not winning matches. And it's all about winning matches, Nathan. There's no doubt about that.
Well, we want your honesty, John. That's the main thing. I know you want to talk about Cristiano Ronaldo. We're pretty much out of time, but next week we'll have seen him in action. He's playing on Saturday against Newcastle, and how that all knits together with himself and Fernandes and Pogba and Greenwood and all the attacking talent they have. So we'll spend a good bit of time on that next Thursday. Great to talk to you as always, John.
Okay, thanks, Nathan.